Next, we want to talk about somebody who wants to go to the Senate. We had somebody who was in the Senate in the 12th Parliament. Somebody wants to join the Senate in the 13th Parliament. JEROTICH SEII, active citizen. She's here with us. Before we talk to her, let her hear the day's proverb.
This is our final proverb from the country of Libya. The night has ears and the day has eyes.
The night has ears and the day has eyes.
Yes, the night has ears and the day has eyes.
Well done.
Gerald, good morning.
Good morning, my friends.
How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good to have you again on the hot seat.
Glad to be here again.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Now you want to cross over to the other side where we'll be calling you here and telling you what have you done.
Absolutely. I'm gearing up for that.
Okay.
Yes.
Why we've invited you today is because we want to understand why is an active citizen deciding to cross over the aisle and go to the other side of elective politics. So, guys, I've just looked at you and this is some clear branding. Proper yellow. If there was any doubt
As to my affiliation.
as to your affiliation.
This yellow appeared before the yellow you are referring to came into force, surely. We've seen this yellow.
Actually, I've been wearing yellow for a very, very long time. It might be the other way around that
yes.
my colors. I've always loved yellow. So here I am. I think I've even worn yellow here.
You have.
Yes,
That
I
is
have.
how come I
Yes,
know that
yes.
you always wear yellow. So this man and
Now she is fully 100% top to bottom yellow. Then she has others under, but this time today, yellow.
Full package yellow.
Full package. Even the earrings have yellow.
Do they?
Yes.
They do? Oh yes, they do. They do.
So there's a strategy here that is actually just revealing itself. That from a very long time, even as she was an active citizen,
Here we go.
she was the founder of the yellow movement among those in the kitchen cabinet. When Chero was busy telling us about all these things that she was doing, Kumbe her strategy was simple.
Eric,
Champion UDA victory.
You know
If
what
UDA wins,
Eric,
William Ruto becomes president.
Okay.
She looks at her home county. Kipchumba Murkomen, well, in 2017, if anyone goes against Kipchumba Murkomen, they are not likely to win. But if they win, Kipchumba will leave the seat and here is Chero. Full circle.
Eric, you know what you've just done?
Strategy.
He has just made me an orkoyot.
And it's what we call confirmation bias. Meaning, you think of a situation, then you look for reasons to justify it. Huh?
I'm not looking for reasons. I've just given you proper, substantive reasons. She has not denied.
Eric is not looking for reasons, but he's still giving reasons.
He's
I
giving
will
them
neither
to,
deny nor confirm.
Yeah. It is
think
called
that
discovery.
He's going the long route to ask, what made you then decide? I mean, it wasn't, one would assume that it wasn't that a vacancy has popped up and said, all right, I have nothing else to do. Let me see if I can become senator for Gil Margaret. So now the question is, what made you make this decision?
As you call me an active citizen, I'm somebody who has always been passionate about the greater good and about every single person being okay. And this is how you have come to know me over the years, where it's championing the rights of Wanjiko. Now you say I might be championing the rights of Chepkoech, but the point being, it has always been about no one is okay until everyone is okay. And it has been not the linear progression that Eric has jokingly referred to, but it has been a continuous build-up of my engagement in public life and aspects of leadership, of advocacy, that at this particular moment in time, when our great Senator Kipchumba Murkomen is now, Waziri Mtarajiwa in that sense, waiting for the vetting to happen, it occurred to me that this is a very logical progression into the space where not only can I be an active citizen, or have I been an active citizen on the outside, but now I can be in the House of Parliament. Because there are many things in the course of our active citizenship, our campaigns for energy justice, even for constitutionalism, that I wish I had had the opportunity to seek direct legislative intervention, to debate, to engage, and to say what is actually going on. I watched the way the House of Parliament has been able to tackle or not tackle issues. For example, even the KEMSA heist or the managed equipment leasing scheme. And I say, why is it that we don't yet have a critical mass of active citizens in the Senate, in the Houses of Parliament, asking these questions on behalf of every single Kenyan citizen who stands to lose when their rights are not well upheld. So it occurred to me that this might be an entry into that legislative space. And you can do a lot. If I have been able to do so much outside without a cent, every single aspect of my active citizenship has been absolutely pro bono and free of charge. Imagine what would happen if we had access to the spaces where we can engage legislatively and see policy formulations come out as a result, push resources where resources are supposed to go, and continue always to champion the rights of Wanjiku. So for me, it's an opportunity to take active citizenship one step further, where I will never be detached from the people I love, the people I serve. And, I also want to add that Elgeyo Marakwet County is not an island floating somewhere in the Indian Ocean. It is one of the 47 counties of the Republic of Kenya, and 48 if you look at the diaspora as a county as well. So it is not just going to then silo myself into Elgeyo Marakwet County to the exclusion of everything else. In fact, during the break, we were talking about issues of peace and security, and Elgeyo Marakwet does not exist on its own. It is surrounded by other counties. And so my role as a legislator would not just simply be to go into the silo of Elgeyo Marakwet, but continue to look nationally, but come specifically to things that affect and impact Elgeyo Marakwet with a view to making sure that the county and its neighbors and the whole country continue to do well. So it won't be now narrowing energy justice activities down to Elgeyo Marakwet. No, we continue to champion the rights, the energy justice rights of all Kenyans, whether they're in Mandera or Migori or Marakwet. So it's a logical progression, and I'm glad that the opportunity has availed itself. These are early days. Parliament still has to vet the cabinet secretaries and so on. But once a vacancy is declared, then we'll see and jump straight into fully fledged campaigns and see whether the people of Elgeyo Marakwet County would like to have me as their senator. And I am a girl from Elgeyo Marakwet County.
If we take a few steps into the future, and assuming that this all comes into play, what happens, because many have been the victim, or rather of circumstance or a situation whereby actively vocal and then going into a position of government and then becoming loudly silent. We have many examples. And so the question is, how then do we know that this would not also happen to JEROTICH?
Well, first of all, can you imagine a silent JEROTICH?
I can't, and so it's fearful, because to think if such a thing has happened to others, how would it be if that happened?
You will never. You can call me back here, put me on this hot seat, and ask me why I've been silent. If I do make it to the Senate and I am silent, please call me out every day. Every single Kenyan is invited to ask me why I'm quiet on this and that issue.
Well, you may not be silent, Jero. What you may do is you'll be vocal, but on the other side.
Which other side? I've always only been on the side of Wakenya.
That's what they all say. Even when they continue going into parliament and then they become very vocal. We've seen the active citizens of the 90s, and when they got into parliament in 2002, 2007, and thereafter, and you ask,
where did this person go?
And they tell you, no, I still You see, getting there, you realize, and you have to balance, and you see, you've got a wider view of how things are working. I still champion Wanjiku's issues, but I'm pragmatic.
But also, if I may just say this, if you talk to these individuals who were once champions of the community at large and the changes then we speak of, they will tell you that when I was championing for these things, my view of these things was one. When I got in there, I saw things I didn't know of before. So suddenly, yes, I wanted to do what I used to do before, but with the knowledge I now have and the experience that I am now going through, I find I can't do exactly what I used to do before. This is what I've heard many such people.
They're now operating from a position of deeper and wider knowledge.
Yes, it is. You suddenly realize that the things you're saying were probably more theoretical than real. And now, when you're in the position where you can do something, you realize, I want to, but I can't quite do it the way I used to say it should be done. It's just a reality check.
You know, you're absolutely right. And my reality has already been checked on the outside. I give you an example when it comes to matters of energy. We talk about illegally and irregularly allocated or awarded power purchase agreements. And one of our positions as Switch Off KPLC is cancel those PPAs because they're patently illegal and they were unconstitutionally awarded. Now, the reality is, and we already know it as we follow the procedure, that you cannot have somebody just pick up a pen and strike out the power purchase agreement. There is a process. And so I think what you're referring to, CT, I agree with that. You temper yourself when you're in there, and you could end up being John the Baptist, that lone voice in the wilderness, shouting up and down the halls of Parliament, or you could become so quiet and colorless and succumb to the pragmatism in quotes, or find a very healthy balance where you utilize the platform that you have to continue to question. Like I said, when I saw the KEMSA and the COVID billionaires, I said, you know, what would I do if I was in there? Now, if I do get in there, then you will see what I would do. But there is a balance that one has to strike. But that balance should never be used as the altar on which you sacrifice the ideals of fighting for the rights of all Kenyans. So I hear you, and we have seen it. That it was very true with Kibaki's government, 2000 and after 2002. Many civil society actors got co-opted into the government and neutralized and fizzled out of existence. I think for me, because I am an active citizen as opposed to perhaps being a member of civil society, a member of part of an NGO or a movement, I'm just an individual who is a businesswoman who is hustling like everybody else, trying to survive and making that decision consciously to come out and fight for the rights. I think I am more difficult a person to co-opt and silence and neutralize because I have no godfather behind me. I have no institutional identity and ethos to maintain. I just come in as a Kenyan who, for the past 5 years, since you've seen me talking about issues of justice for all Kenyans, you see me as the same person, and I don't have anybody that I'm beholden to behind that. But I also want to add, one of the reasons why I supported President William Ruto was the Kenya Kwanza plan, and I spoke about it the last time that we were here. It is a plan that I can get behind, that I have gotten behind, and that is one of the things I would like to see properly implemented if I make it into the House of Parliament at the senatorial level. Because in there are some of the solutions to the gross inequalities that continue to plague Wanjiko, Chepkoech, Akinyi, whoever it is you want to make reference to. And so I believe that this will be a patently different kind of administration. The proof is in the pudding. The proof is also in the eating. So we are yet to see what will happen. And remember, I said, and I've also said on social media, and I've said on other media, print and electronic media, that I will continue to hold the Kenya Kwanza government, of which I will be a part if I am elected, to account. This is not a question of being co-opted and you disappear into the woodwork and wear your yellow happily and celebrate at national events. In fact, the president himself welcomes healthy, constructive, continuous criticism because he does want to do better and he will do better. And that is why I supported Kenya Kwanza. So that does not disappear. And that filters down to how we look at how resources are pushed to the counties. And the role of the senator is quite clear. The senator is not going to be another MCA or a member of parliament or a governor. The senator sits at the national level to ensure that oversight of the devolution process, including the pushing of resources where they belong, triggering catalytic funding, looking to support the governor, the members of parliament, including the woman rep and the MCAs, to achieve the development objectives there. And also to look at the broader issues, for example, the issue of peace and security. What about women, peace and security? I know the governor of Elgeyo Marakwet County yesterday was with Tekla Lorupe, who has championed peace in the Turkana Pokot Marakwet region for quite a long time. And that type of action is the action that as a senator, one would look at and say, how do we trigger under Resolution 1035 that looks at women, peace and security? How do we trigger further support, further action? So it's not just, again, that siloing of, I'm the senator of Elgeyo Marakwet County, but we are not okay until there's peace across the board. So looking at West Pokot, looking at Turkana, looking at Baringo, looking at Elgeyo Marakwet County. So it is that whole macro down, like global, down to the intimate, and back out to the global type of action that intrigues me and that I would like to be a part of, to ensure that at the end of the day, President William Ruto has achieved what he set out to achieve. And we need to be there to support him.
You know, those
check
counties,
here.
sorry.
Please go ahead, Eric.
Those counties, the county that you want to represent, Elgeyo Marakwet, you've talked about West Pokot, you've talked about Turkana, Baringo, and others, have not seen peace for a very long time. Now, whether you're elected or not, what do you think is the solution that lies in bringing peace and lasting peace to the people of this region? So that those children who are today not going to school because police are there conducting a security operation, the people, the traders who are not going to the cattle market because there's a security operation, and it keeps happening. And if they go to the cattle market, they're going to take the livestock that was not stolen last night. What should we do to make sure that there is peace here?
You see, for me, and a couple of weeks ago, the horrific attack that left security personnel, military and security personnel dead, and a woman leader. It's almost like Groundhog Day. Every time there's a bit of peace and quiet in the valley, then it flares up again. And I've listened to various experts, whether it's peace and security experts, whether it's politicians, and so on. It boils down to there's a couple of interests somewhere that have remained, in my opinion, entrenched and not dislodgeable. They always somehow comes out, like the weaponization of this state of insecurity to either hit, punish, or create a constant flux. There was a time that there was a theory of the movement of livestock. Other time they say, oh, it's just the Pokot youth who have completely gone off the reservation and are doing whatever they want to do. In other cases, it is the destabilization of one county so that another, so there's all kinds of reasons. But at the end of the day, what concerns me is it's the women and the children who are most impacted. And of course, the women and the children who also lose sons, who lose husbands in the course of this violence. So it is one of the things that would be a high priority for me. I attended a funeral last weekend in Keyo North, and a good chunk of the remarks made by those who were speaking also had to do with this same issue. It was the Baringo North MP, there was also the Keyo North MP, there was the Marakwet East, Marakwet West, Keyo South. This is something that continues to preoccupy us. It's something that I would look at. And when the president said, we are going to end this, Nasio Tafadhali, I want to see how that Nasio Tafadhali will be rolled out, because we literally have to bring to an abrupt halt this continuous, senseless killing. And the fact that those who are doing the killing are so well armed. And I even watched a clip somewhere, I think it was TikTok or YouTube, where this young man casually with his AK-47 found a little bird up somewhere, some tree, and just most casually just fired. And the bird comes down to these are snipers of the highest order.
Do you know the age at which they start handling such weapons?
10, 9.
Yes, so by the time that person is an adolescent, what do you think they can do?
So if you talk about
a human being is a big species.
If you talk about demobilization, so let's say now Nasio Tafadhali kicks in.
Yep.
How do you demobilize these men who have known nothing but fighting?
Actually,
Do you shoot them dead? Do you what do you do? Do you disarm them?
President Ruto probably has an advantage over the other presidents we've had with regard to these issues. I say this because of where he comes from. Now, they may not have these sort of problems in his ancestral background, but he comes from that region. Now, if I am to go by what I have observed to be the capacity for serious intent that he has, okay, then I would argue that currently he's the one person who is in the best position to actually deal with this thing. The way he does his things, directed, purposed movement, you see, there lies a problem here, and that's where your candidature, God willing, you become senator, will have a problem. You will not be dealing with the bandits. The bandits are not really your problem. We are looking at this thing as banditry, and it isn't. It's a business. Anything that can last this long and can be sustained for this length of time, what we're seeing are the symptoms of that business. Because it can't last this long if there are people who don't benefit. There are people who benefit, and that benefit has to be maintained. So you may actually find that the people you're going to be dealing with are not outsiders, people who probably are in the same party as you.
Perhaps, CT, you've even been more bold than I've been speaking to it. That's exactly the point. There was a time years ago I heard about heads of cattle, for example, and I'm not specifically referring to this area of insecurity, although it could be part of the corridor, where there was a movement of thousands of heads of cattle up, going all the way out, across the border, coming back down. So there's something always lucrative there. There's that you could talk about banditry or warriors who are untamed, but you're right. In fact, it benefits those who are benefiting from the bigger criminal activity under there to have this level of instability where you say, oh, there are these bandits who are out of control, these young men who started handling guns at the age of 10 and so on. So what you might have is an uneasy truce, an uneasy peace. And then it will just be a matter of time before it bubbles and boils over. Now, I'm not wanting to be a prophet of doom because I would very much like this to be sustainably resolved. But what you're talking about is a need to go more radical because we tend to scratch the surface of problems, then we think we have solved it. It's like you have a pothole, you put the thinnest layer of tarmac, the next rainy season, the pothole is back. So we can look at it that way and say, if we put a very thin layer of tarmac over this problem, the next rainy season, the pothole will be back, and cars will continue to break to damage their tires and their axles on this in this deep pothole. So you're absolutely right that we have to be radical, and we could run into problems if every time it's like a whack-a-mole. You hit you deal with this, and it crops up
Another
there.
one pops up.
Yes. So and then again, when I talked about women, peace and security, you have situations back to that surface, a thin layer of tarmac. The warriors come back and women are ululating, for example. When we begin to engage them, we say, why would you ululate when somebody has gone to kill somebody else's child? Or, so there can be that layer of community engagement where there's that sensitization to say, from a perspective of peace and development, our region will stay like this forever unless we also begin to change our approach to combat and praising the warriors and so on. Alternative. When I think of Marakwet and I think of Lina Kilimo, for example, and what she did to end FGM there, or to bring FGM to an end, talking about alternative rites of passage, for example, she took something that has been part and parcel of the fabric of the community for decades and said, well, let's come up with something different. So when we look at peace and security, when we look at long-lasting peace, it's also saying, how do we turn some of the things that we think has just been part of us for so long into something else more sustainable and that allows people to go to the marketplace, children to go to school. It stops mothers from burying their 8-year-olds and so on and so forth. So there's a lot to be done. And that is but the tip of the iceberg of what needs to be dealt with if I became senator of Elgeyo Marakwet County, because there's issues of environment, there's issues of youth and employment. There's so much more that we need to deal with.
Let's take a break and then continue this conversation shortly. 8:30. This is the Situation Room. JEROTICH SEII active citizen wants to be the senator for Elgeyo Marakwet County. Should Parliament next week vet and approve the nomination of Kipchumba Murkomen to the cabinet, and then he resigns and that seat is declared vacant and an election is announced, then she will be in the race. That's what you're saying. So first of all, you'll have to battle it out for the UDA ticket.
Yeah.
Where? A tough one.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
An active citizen, she is an aspirant for the soon-to-be declared vacant seat of Elgeyo Marakwet Senator. And we're asking, why is an active citizen deciding to move into elective politics, and what is it that we expect to see? We have seen the other very local, very vocal active citizen becoming the senator for Busia County. And he sat here and we asked him, so now, who will be going to court on our behalf? And he said, no, I will still be very active in everything that I do. So you're telling us the same thing.
Absolutely.
Even if I go to the Senate, I'll still be as active as that. Now let's talk about the local politics. There are very many people whom we've seen expressing interest to run for this seat. Many of them under UDA, and then others who may not even go under UDA, maybe others will go independent. What is your strategy?
Oh, my strategy. No, first of all, I think it's wonderful. I mean, it's actually people being able to exercise their their rights, their franchise. And of course, there's a running joke that, if your boma has not produced an aspirant, there's something wrong with your boma. so there's very, 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 very many of us. And, I know some of the aspirants, I know of some of the aspirants. And, by and large, we're a pretty decent bunch of people. And I think it's excellent, those who want to give themselves, offer themselves for service and so on. It's a good indicator that you have people who want to serve and who want to lead. But I believe for me, the strategy or even my comparative advantage is the fact that I continue to completely understand what the role of a senator is. If I do believe that Elgeyo Marakwet County, like all the other counties, will find local solutions to local problems. But this is why you have layers of leadership. This is why you have your member of county assembly who will work with the governor, who will also work with the members of parliament, the woman rep there. So the local solutions to the local problems are being sought. If you look at the county integrated development plan, which I've had occasion to study at length, also not just Elgeyo Marakwet's, but other counties, CIDPs as well, it's very clear that the county knows what it needs to do and has some priority areas of focus. That was part of the CIDP 2018 to 2022, coming to an end this year, to then flag off a new one for the next cycle. So for me, my strategy, my space, my area of advantage is that I know that my role is absolutely national. My role is to say, what is it, Governor Wesley JEROTICH, that you are implementing or trying to do? What is it that you, the Member of Parliament, Marakwet West or Marakwet East or KO North, KO South, need to do to push your constituency and then the county at large forward? And what can I do to trigger and dislodge additional resources to help you do what you need to do. My role is to do the resource mobilization, to advocate at that national level, to look at the legislative spaces and then provide the policy way forward and say, look, if we're looking at issues of conservation, or if we're looking at issues of the Hanging Valley and the degradation of the Hanging Valley along along EMC, what do we need to do? What policy directives do we have? Is there some aspect of legislation? Is there a bill that I need to sponsor that would help us look better at this issue of the protection of our environment? So it is that level. It is looking at catalytic funding. You know, the president has many plans for Kenya. But we also know that our coffers are a little bit on the lean side. And so we know that even in terms of devolution, not enough money is going down to the counties. What do I need to do as senator in the interim? Do I have access to resources, to donors, and then I now go back and fish back into my life in the United Nations, working for international organizations, my regional, my global networks and contacts that would say, can we trigger some work around women and cooperatives? You know, so it is knowing the power here is knowing what you're supposed to be doing. So if I go to the ground and I campaign saying, we are going to drill a borehole, we are building a primary school, then am I trying to be the 5th MP, 6th MP?
Will the people understand that? So somebody on Twitter called Emmanuel Mayo, he calls himself the Duke of Elgeyo. He says most of our youth are unemployed, especially from KO South. How will you tackle this if you're lying?
First of all, I tackle it not by trying to do the work of the Member of Parliament who's been elected there, but by sitting and discussing with the Member of Parliament, the MCAs in that area and the governor to say, the EMC government, to say, what are the plans that we have in place to deal with this level of unemployment? And it is true, when I'm there myself, the number of unemployed youth standing in centers, sitting around, even now, since I declared my interest, how many young people have said, can I be part of your campaign? Can I be with you? There is a high level of unemployment. And I want to admit that it's not just an Elgeyo Marakwet issue. It's throughout the country. So it's not a unique situation. But looking at what we have as a county in terms of our natural resources, the opportunity to expand the economy through, for example, tourism, through productive economic activities around agriculture. You know, you look at the degradation of the Hanging Valley, and I come from KO South, and if you look at KO South, and by Hanging Valley, I mean you have the highland up there, then you have the Hanging Valley, and then you have the floor of the Kerio Valley. It's bald. it's been cultivated, heavily cultivated, a high level of deforestation. Whereas when you keep going north, you go to Keyo North and you're going into Marakwet, it's still quite thick forest cover, as I remember it when I was a child for Keyo South. So it is a question of saying, so what are we doing? Do we need to restore the Hanging Valley? Do we need to get into fruit farming? Do we need to get young people into gainful but profitable employment, which is both, for example, securing food security, but also restoring the soil that is prone to landslides. And those landslides can be pretty lethal. Also, to restore the water catchment and processes. If you go up and down the length of the escarpment, you have Torok Falls, you have all these waterfalls that come. And by the way, we are also source for Lake Victoria and Lake Turkana. And when I was little, again, now this is in the 70s and the 80s, you would come down and there would be all these seasonal streams continuously. When you're driving, you drive over a stream and another stream. Today, when you go, they're virtually non-existent. So if you're looking at all these unemployed young people, what can we do within the space of agriculture? Reviving cooperatives, have youth cooperatives that might get into fruit farming, for example, have these tremendous orchards. I ate the most delicious mangoes. Every time I'm there, I remember how sweet and tamu. Have you eaten those tiny little mangoes like this? Yeah. Oh yeah, you grew up in Tambach, so you're very familiar with that. But it is about being outside the box and saying, what can we do? But also understanding that maybe our young people need to seek opportunities further afield. We are not stuck permanently and trapped inside Elgeyo Marakwet County or Vihiga County or Lamu County. Maybe there are opportunities. Look at me, I'm from EMC and I live in Nairobi. And I found my living not just in Nairobi, across the continent and around the world. So what can we do to be more innovative around this high rate of unemployment? Yes, City.
From a policy perspective, me, I'm sold.
You're sold.
Do you
vote in Tambach?
I vote in Kilimani. From a policy perspective, you've painted a beautiful picture. That won't get you elected. Because people want to know the solutions you're bringing today, not 10 years to come, today. How you are able to impact these things that you're saying, how they can make sense today. I'm using today because the problems that our people have are with them today, not tomorrow. Now, if it means encroaching on the turf of the MP, so be it. Because if the MP was doing what they were supposed to do, some of these problems, I'm talking about economic problems, not the business of banditry, no. Then you wouldn't need to. But if there is a gap, remember, you represent the entire county. So you can step on as many toes as you possibly can. Because if something isn't being done, county level, it is your job to ensure it works. If the governor isn't doing something, because the governor has the mandate and the resources to be able to put in place some of these policies and to also solve these problems you're talking about, the messaging, if it does not relate to the immediate solutions or the near immediate solutions of the electorate, they will say, very good idea, but question, how does it help me today?
That's fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic, and I couldn't have said it better myself, and I completely agree with you. I think my strategy is that I don't walk into a room guns blazing, because many of these MPs are brand new. I think there's only one who is third term member of parliament now, and so I don't walk into a room with my AK-47, if we continue with the insecurity analogy, and start firing left, right and center. Mine is a cooperative approach. It is to say, hey, my brother, my sister, what do you have in mind? These are some of the ideas that I have. But I agree that when I'm there campaigning, because when you're campaigning, what you're basically saying is you need to be pretty populist when you're campaigning. You need to say, I will bring you this today.
You must.
And I understand that, and I do.
She must promise that.
Yes,
No,
but
the things she can do, you see, at the level of senator, you see, the things that a senator can do are very many. And those are the things that people must understand and how they relate to them, as I said, immediately, today.
Triggering resources. You see, my comparative advantage is access to spaces. You see, the women who are selling mbogas down there in Bireto when I was leaving KO North last weekend, you look at it and they're selling a bunch of managu. A big bunch of managu like this. And I asked the lovely lady, how much is this? Somebody I was expecting, okay, it's shag, so you expect it to be slightly cheaper. That bunch was 50 bob. This. And you say, how on earth is she
they
making
survive?
any money? Because by the time you go and buy it in wherever, Carrefour or your Mama Mboga around the corner, you'll buy that same bunch for what?
150, yeah.
No, more. 300, 400. You'll buy
was
it
that
for-
big a bunch?
It was a huge bunch of managu. So now you're asking practically what can happen. And we're not talking about election handouts where you're giving people money to vote
No.
for you. No, we're talking about saying, what if there is a discretionary amount of money sitting in some ambassadors' budget line around women and cooperatives, women, and value add to their agricultural activities, and say we're triggering a release of X number of $1,000, which may not look like a lot in the larger scheme of things, but will allow that little circle of women. Because I asked the ladies, are you part of a circle? They said, yes, tuna circle yetu hapa. So what could I do in that moment to say, within the next month, within the next few weeks, we see how to get some money to you, so that the activities that you had will be, that's why I call it catalytic. The funding is catalytic. It's not the development funds. It's not what the governor has looked at in his budget within the CIDP. So it is those promises. And this business of promising and lying. And this is why people are so often jaded, because people will stand and say, I'll bring you this, I'll bring you that. Then you vote them in and they disappear.
Yes.
I'm one who engages in realism. And I say, look, we can make a difference. And I'm also an optimist. I'm a realistic optimist. And we can engage in activities that will do step by step to a place where when the funding finally kicks in for the larger, let's say, environmental restoration, we already have pockets of young people who are planting trees. Of course, the trees that you plant, you will not eat the fruit of
immediately,
tomorrow.
yeah.
So it's finding that, but finding a way also to communicate it in a way that it is filled with hope, to say, actually, what you're doing today will have an impact in 9 months, will have an impact in a year. But today, in the immediate, what are you going to do? Then you look at the Hustler Fund. So part of my role as a senator is to say, wapi hiyo Hustler Fund, and when is it trickling down? When can young people begin to engage? Because not everyone is a farmer. Maybe it is some other economic activity they wanted to engage in. And like I said, you go to all these centers and you find unemployed young people. How can we trigger the release of the resources to them? And mine is a cooperative approach, not a combative approach. The members of parliament, the governor, the MCAs will be my close and personal friends, because they're the ones who will be delivering on the ground. Unless I want to trade with them and say, please come to Senate, mi niende nikafanya your development on the ground. So it is finding that way, that sweet spot. And I'm a great lover of Elgeyo Marakwet County. Even though I now live in Nairobi, but I've been a resident or a citizen or a part of Elgeyo Marakwet
part of it
County
for a long time.
almost 48 years, if
fact-
I am to tell you. For almost 48 years, I have been a part of Elgeyo Marakwet
In fact,
County.
Jero, so
Yeah.
your family, in fact, let's
Yeah.
ask that question, all right? Kenya, we really like tying ties into familial ties and seeing where we talk about Magani and all. So the people of Elgeyo Marakwet know you from KO, and they know your family. Your mother, the Ambassador Tabitha SEII, was one of those who are the iron ladies of the days when she went up against Nicholas Biwott for a parliamentary seat. And she's been in active politics for a while. Is that likely to add or minus from your race? Is it likely for you to separate yourself from, I am JEROTICH SEII, forget
and
about
not the
Major
daughter
John
of-
SEII and Tabitha SEII, but I am myself? Or are those going to play?
Well, again, like I said, being almost 48, since I've once again outed myself here, I am a separate individual, because I am a mom, I'm a wife, I'm somebody who has her own space and her own life. And for my campaign, I come myself. I don't come, they say these dynasty stories. I come myself. However, I would be remiss, or I would be less than genuine if I did not add that there is indeed that understanding this. "Oh, are you the daughter of SEII?" So there is that recognition, especially in KO South. And the people of KO South understand how Ambassador Tabitha SEII fought, and alongside my father, Major SEII, and how we bore the brunt of being one of the few Kalenjin families in the opposition in the 1980s. And I mean, my father was fired from the military. There was a lot of harassment. It was a terrible time. So I grew up as a child with that particular legacy and into adulthood. So that is always going to be there. That said, the other elephant in the room is my mother is in Azimio. You see, I've been called a mole. All of I realized I was trending because they thought I was an Azimio mole. My mother is in Azimio. We are a very democratic family.
Clearly.
It doesn't mean she doesn't support me or doesn't love me, and it doesn't mean I don't love her and respect her and even support her. But it just goes to show that we can be completely separate individuals. So I respect and love my parents. I appreciate their legacy. There are many young people in Elgeyo Marakwet County who don't know that history. They know probably the last 10 years, so they might not know who she is. But the older generation, my generation and those older, do understand that there's a very important role that was played by the SEIs in the 80s, fighting for the second liberation and for pluralism. So that is a balance that I manage quite well. And by and large, I think it has not harmed my prospective candidature, but I will continue to stand alone and run alone, because I will not be going to the Senate with my mom and my dad. I will be going alone. But they're the ones that introduced me to Elgeyo Marakwet County. I'm the family historian. I can tell you our family tree back to 1620. It is my father who gives me all of that information, and I can tell you what clan, this and that and the other. So there are even those people who are saying, lakini anaongea lugha ama what does she? I say, I could come to SpiceFM and say, Kalenjin, and I start talking. So it's not really about the language I'm using or not using, but the fact that do I know, do I understand, do I appreciate what it means to come from Elgeyo Marakwet County, and also appreciate what it means to be a Kenyan. And that for me is really my first and undying love, that I'm a Kenyan. And I could live in Lamu, I could live in Garissa, I could live in Marsabit, I could live anywhere, and I'll always love this country. But I'm especially proud of my county, Elgeyo Marakwet. And I'd also like to say, I'd be remiss, Kipchumba Murkomen, Senator, soon to be Cabinet Secretary, has done a fantastic job of representing and raising the profile of Elgeyo Marakwet County. And so it is also going to be big shoes that one has to fit.
That's a question
and
that
he
I
found
wanted
that
to
balance.
ask.
He found that balance between being a senator of Elgeyo Marakwet County and a national leader, which he was and is and will continue to be.
That's what I wanted to ask. Legislatively, if you're looking at the county, I mean, with Senator Murkomen and the work that he did, what needs to be done today?
To continue to further his work.
Exactly.
I mean, he's when he goes into the cabinet, he will have left a great number of activities ongoing in terms of his support for the development in Elgeyo Marakwet County. And it will, whoever takes over, behoove them to spend some time also with him and say, where were you? Where had you reached? If you haven't already done that research, and say peace and security is a huge issue, economic development and empowerment, issues of youth and unemployment, the protection of the environment. The same things that I've spoken to are things that he has championed and will continue to champion, even as he's looking at the issues of infrastructure, roads and infrastructure, and hopefully that 10 to 12% coverage in terms of tarmac in Elgeyo Marakwet County, as well as the rest of the country, will see a massive boost over the next number of years in his tenure as Cabinet Secretary, if he is indeed vetted successfully by the Parliament. So there's a lot that he did, and there's a lot that we can continue to do, whoever it is who is successful in this particular bid, to carry on his good work, to fill his shoes, but also create, one's own identity and profile. For me, if I come into the Senate, I'm already the active citizen. Just like Okiya Omtata will not stop being comrade, I will not stop being active citizen, even though I would be senator of Elgeyo Marakwet County. Yeah.
Did you ask the question you wanted to ask?
I did.
Did you?
You didn't. Where were you?
Second part.
Oh, what was the
You
second?
never ask her one question just like that and just leave it going, There are very many people standing in their comment and saying, yeah, you articulate on matters of policy and all. I hope that also translates on how you engage with the people on the ground that you're seeking the votes from. many people who are seeking this seat. We interviewed Tim Kipchumba, who's an entrepreneur and a mentor as well. On Monday, we'll be interviewing somebody else here for the same position. First Speaker of the County Assembly of Elgeyo Marakwet. His name is Albert Kochei. He is now the Vice Chairperson of the Center for Multi-Party Democracy. So just like Tiori is saying, that Elgeyo Marakwet is really blessed to have very, very good people who want to take this seat. So we wish you all the best, Jero. You're a friend of the show.
Thank you.
Always welcome. Should you get elected, you'll be coming here and we'll be putting you on this. Our job on this show, like you know, is to make sure that we support our leaders by telling them the truth.
Absolutely.
When they do well, we tell them. When they don't do well, we tell them.
I would be disappointed if you did any less than that.
Very good.
Yes.